Now in this video we're going to show you how to grow this Crassula. It's a species of quite a few different varieties, Crassula Ovata, and this is Gollum, which has these very elongated, narrow, almost trumpet-like leaves in some cases. Just look at the way that's sort of split and open at the end. It forms this very nice green, slow-growing semi-tree. You can almost form these into shaped bushes, and we've got quite a few growing here in the barn. This one's on an east-facing wall. We've got two more examples that I'm going to show you just in the entrance to the barn. Here we are either side of the large barn window, south-facing, and at this time of year you can see the sun just streaming in. Crassula is ideal in this situation. It will grow really well in full sun. Being a succulent, it will put up with being dry in the compost for quite a long period of time and still stand really well. You can see this plant here, really nice open form, thick branch-like, tree-like structure really, and it forms a really good self-supporting house plant. Terminal height of these is probably no more in the UK than around 3 or 4 feet. These are probably 7 or 8 years old to get this trunk thickness. But what happens occasionally, as you can see on this one, is they get knocked and a little bit falls off, and these are so easy to propagate and get going. So we're going to show you what to do with little broken stems like this. This one's been sitting on the floor here probably for about 3 or 4 days, and that's no bad thing because the broken area here where it's come away from its stem will have dried up, but that's ideal for just placing now into some compost, and this will grow away extremely quickly. So let's go and show you that process and what you can expect as these grow away to form these absolutely splendid self-supporting indoor succulent trees. Well, I've come through into a very cold conservatory just to show you the simple process of just popping these into some compost. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Any general purpose potting compost or seed compost or even garden soil if you've got it in a yogurt pot or a small 2 or 3 inch pot like this is perfectly adequate. Just form a little dip into your compost, and then the Crassula cutting just goes in the top and just firm it down just on the surface. You don't have to dig them deep in. I'll just tap it, firm it, try and keep so that the soil is in contact with that little stem, and then all you need to do with that is put it into not a very light space, but somewhere where it's getting good quality light, and give it a good water and keep the compost just on the moist side. And what you'll find in a couple of months' time is that it will start growing away and new leaves will form and a stem will come out of the top. And you'll end up with something looking a little bit like this. You can see it's starting to grow away. This one's probably been potted up for about 6 months, still in a small pot. Compost here you can see is bone dry. Again, this is on a very sunny windowsill. We've only put it in this light since it started to get some root down and into the compost. If you do that too quickly, it's likely just to shrivel up, and you can see the Crassula leaves will start getting quite wrinkly. If that's the case, put it somewhere out of the direct sun until you've got some good root, and then 12 months later you'll hopefully end up with something looking a little bit like this one. Starting to get some structure now with branches forming. The way it grows new branches is quite green and succulent to begin with. Start just growing out and extending and extending. You can either nip those out if you want it to branch, or once you start getting a structure like this, what tends to naturally happen, you can see these older leaves start drying up and falling away. This one's about ready for repotting. I should think if we took this out of the pot it would be quite very fine fibrous roots. They don't tend to overgrow with the roots particularly vigorously. It's a very fine root structure, but by potting them into a bigger pot that tends to bring them on much quicker. But don't do it too early. Wait until they're starting to struggle as far as the watering is concerned. We do feed ours with a liquid feed, tend to use the baby bio brown plant liquid food that's available here in the UK. All these succulents on this windowsill get that periodically, not every water, but alternate or at least twice a month. We tend to give them a feed, and you can get a beautiful display by mixing the different types. But I particularly am fond of the Gollum one because it forms such a beautiful structure. One final tip for growing these on, and I'm going to have to watch this one on this east facing window, the one we started with. They do tend to get rather top heavy. If you can imagine, the weight of the compost is really overpowered by the terminal weight of all that branch and leaf structure above. So do watch them, because they do have a tendency, if you don't pot them on into larger pots, to get very top heavy, unstable, and they will topple over if you are not careful with them. So this one's about ready to be repotted, I think. They naturally form this tree-like branch structure without you having to do anything, but it's perfectly possible that you can remove some of the leaf from the branches to expose that and make a more startling structure.